Hello everybody and welcome to The Key, where we discuss ways to optimize your vehicle program on the road. My name is Lee Adam and I'm a vehicle reimbursement expert here at CarData. Let's dive in. Today I'm joined by Maddie Beelan. Hi Maddie, thanks for joining us.
Hi Lee.
Maddie is the Senior Manager of Customer Success here at CarData. Today we're going to be diving into some common pitfalls associated with finding success in your FAVR program. That means really diving into reasons why your FAVR program may not be achieving the original goals that you set out. So Maddie, in your particular experience, how can customer success really play a role here in helping to achieve a successful vehicle program?
I mean, customer success is the reason why programs are successful. It's how somebody at a company will know exactly when an update needs to be made, if they're falling out of compliance, how they design a program, how they do training for a program, making sure that it really is achieving those goals. Without customer success and having somebody to consult, it's very challenging to run a successful FAVR program.
So true, so true. It really is the root of how programs are able to be not only built but effectively managed. Mm-hmm. Great, awesome. Okay, so let's start with talking about the training and the onboarding of a program like this. So let's pretend we're a new employee. We're starting a FAVR program. We're dipping our toes in. There's a little bit of a learning curve, of course, right? We've got to learn the IRS regulations. We have to learn internal company policy with regards to compliance regulations, expectation for use, and all these important elements, right? So how do drivers typically feel when they're starting a FAVR program?
Nervous, anxious, it's daunting. If you just heard the term FAVR, how are you ever supposed to know exactly what that means?
Right. Most
people, it's not common language. The two of us know a lot about it, but most people don't. Mm-hmm. It's not a term you come across every day. So understanding that people don't know what it means, they don't know what the compliance regulations are off the bat, and they really don't know if someone says, oh, you're just going to get some money for driving your personal car, how much are you going to be getting? Or they're nervous that it's not actually going to cover the costs that they incur for driving that car for their job.
And understanding, Maddie, that there is this learning curve, right? People might be a little bit weary. They might not understand. How important is program training in pre-launch for a FAVR program or a program like this?
Oh, it's necessary. You can't skip it. It's the reason why a program can be successful or unsuccessful. A lot of times we see if a company doesn't have any training involved, then they get lack of engagement in the program, which means that they're going to have compliance issues and people are going to be kind of very weary of it and not participate, and it's going to lead to an unsuccessful program, and then you're not going to hit those ROI targets of what you set out to do and achieve. So program training is actually very necessary, not just app training on how to use the technology, but also making sure people understand the why behind why we're doing this. That's very important. All of our program training, we make sure that the company decision makers come in and answer the questions head on that their employees have. Why are we making this transition? What's the benefit for us? What are the rules that you're putting in place for us? We assist in everything in everything you do in making sure that the terminology you use, the way in which you can push this out to your employees is done properly and timely and on the right cadence that's needed. If you don't want to do it too early, you don't want to do it too late. So making sure you get that timing really right is what we're there to help with. Yeah,
that's great. It sounds like it's really important to set expectations with drivers and just to make everybody feel confident moving forward, as you mentioned, not just with the technology, of course, because there is a learning curve every time anybody has to, use a new app, for example, for work, right? But also with the program, because that is truly the biggest change to them. It might be a difference in what they're putting in their pocket and what they're taking home to their family, to cover the cost of driving. So it's important to have those clear expectations to build confidence and ultimately, as you mentioned, to get that adoption, right? Because what are the risks of poor training? What are the risks of poor adoption on a program?
I mean, ultimately, if you don't get adoption from your user base, they're going to be very unhappy. It could lead to turnover of your employees. They're going to go somewhere else. They aren't happy with the changes that you've made to really what it is, their reimbursement. It can also lead to compliance issues and ultimately, as we said before, not hitting the ROI goals that the company set out for. if a driver or an employee doesn't really understand the impact that participating in FAVR does, they're not going to understand that they can have income tax savings, or they can be really driving the car that they want to drive. If you're a family, you have 3 kids, and you want to drive a minivan, here, we'll provide a reimbursement for you that allows you to drive that minivan. If you are a single young man who wants to drive a convertible, hey, you know what? You can get reimbursed for that. It's not going to be the whole cover of the cost, but it allows flexibility in your lifestyle as well. So making sure that there is training associated with what are the rules, but also what are the rules that are necessary to follow versus what are the choices that an employee has on their FAVR program, because it allows a lot of choice.
I love that. It's so important, I think, to effectively not only deliver the requirements and the compliance, but as you mentioned, showing the benefits, like being very transparent about what is in it for you, right? And typically, FAVR is seen as the most fair approach to reimbursement. It's the fairest. It leverages market data, leverages market cost, it leverages geographical information, and also, the type of vehicle required to do the job, right? So companies are able to control the requirements associated with driving for work, right? But then, as you mentioned, employees are gonna be very fairly reimbursed to cost, right? What the fuel cost is in their area, what the cost is for their mileage that they put on the vehicle. But it does give them that flexibility. So I love that you mentioned that there's this benefit there that if it's not appropriately communicated, can get people's guards up, right? And that's really not needed, because FAVR is that beautiful intersection between, effective streamlining of costs, but also extremely fair payments.
I mean, one of the things we see the most is the lack of understanding that if my employee or my company has set a vehicle profile that is a standard, which is like a Toyota Corolla or something like that, a lot of employees will say, hey, now I have to drive this type of car. That's not the case. That's just the cost of what they're saying, the type of vehicle that actually is required to do the job. You could drive whatever you want in reality, but a lot of people think now they have to go out and buy that specific vehicle when that's really not the case. So making sure they understand that's kind of the requirements aren't always exactly what they have to do in the long run.
Awesome. So good. And so important for our partners to be able to rely on us to say, hey, look, guys, let's clear out the miscommunications. Let's clear out all of the noise in the space and really get down to the nitty gritty of what's required for you and some of the clear benefits, which I think is really great. Awesome. Okay, so the program is set up. Everybody's running smoothly. We are an employee and we're driving on the road for work. I'm using my new FAVR program. What are some of the most common challenges or grievances, so to speak, prior to transitioning to car data and perhaps running a FAVR program on another provider? What are some challenges that we're seeing with support for drivers on the road?
I mean, the first thing and foremost is not being able to get in touch with someone. We see that a lot of they really need some help while they're on the road. This isn't the main part of their job. This is just a piece that they have to do to get reimbursed. It's not their focal point. So a lot of times these employees are driving on the road. Hey, it's close to the end of the month. Hey, I needed to submit my insurance. I'm a bit confused on how to do it. I haven't done it before. And they just want to talk to somebody. Not being able to get in contact is one of the biggest challenges. And then other times we hear that when they do get in contact, if they call about the same issue or they've heard that their colleague called and they've gotten 2 different responses. So how do you know which one's supposed to be true? How do you know what the exact rule is? And then they end up having to reach out to their manager, who isn't fully trained up on the program always and needs to then kind of escalate the issue. So making sure that the questions are answered properly and always in the exact same manner, and that the support team is fully trained up on how their specific program works, including their company policy.
Right. So it sounds like from what you've seen with other customers is that prior to making their transition, the drivers really weren't able to get A, a hold of somebody, and B, the answer to solve their problem a lot of the time. So from your experience, what's the risk of that? What's the challenge when drivers don't trust that they're gonna get the right answer?
I mean, ultimately, it leads to lack of adoption. Again, they're going to stop tracking their mileage. They're going to stop thinking the program's a benefit, and ultimately, they may end up just leaving the company altogether, leading to turnover. It could also lead to them causing grief for managers in the long run and asking for a reversal of the program. Let's go back to what we used to have because I understood it and I could get the answers that I needed to because I would just go directly to my manager. So it's really important that if they're contacting a support team outside of their internal company, that they're fully trained up as if they were a part of that company and know the answers to their questions.
Totally. You're right, because these types of favor programs, we've seen them save millions. We've seen them save so much money for organizations if their drivers are compliant, right? If their drivers are using the technology and they're tracking mileage. But if drivers if they drop out, they don't buy in, they're no longer supporting the program, they don't want to do it, they just want to get hit with tax, they don't care because it's too hard and they don't understand it, then that's the gap. That's where we're not really going to see the ROI. So, understanding these previous challenges that we've seen, walk us through now how support works at CarData.
Yeah, so support at CarData is in-house. They're full-time CarData employees. They get trained up on every single company that comes on board to make sure that they understand the policies that are put in place. They understand what FAVR is and some of the other types of programs that we offer. What are the differences? What are the rules? What are the compliance metrics that are associated? And making sure that when an employee does call, that they're met with empathy. They're met with, I understand sometimes there's frustrations. I understand that this can be a daunting and change that you're experiencing. And walking them through kind of what are the most important pieces and being proactive and saying, hey, it looks like you're out of compliance for this. Are you aware of that? Do you know what that means? Do you know the impact that has? If the answer is yes, great. A lot of times the answer is no and they weren't even aware of it. So making sure that we educate, not just answer questions, but are proactive when employees do reach out to our support team.
I love that. And that's a big juxtaposition with some of the other programs that exist in the space in terms of support, right? There's a lot of tech support teams out there that are like, hey, let me reset your app or let me reset your phone, but that's really not what support at CarData is. Of course we have that element, everybody's trained up on everything, as you mentioned, but most of the time people want to understand, why is my rate this? Why am I gonna be paid this? Why do I need to submit my insurance? And of course the quantity of those questions actually go down post CarData transition because of how effective our training is. But when they do come in, the support team they're not just there to provide, ad hoc assistance. It's more like, hey, let me help you truly understand your program so that we can avoid these issues moving forward.
Exactly. You don't want someone calling about the exact same issue every single week or the exact same question every single week or every month when they see how much they got reimbursed. You want to explain it to them once if they didn't fully understand it in the initial training, that they then get a one-on-one session with somebody to really deep dive into their specific rate so that they fully understand it.
Awesome. And it sounds like as well that, we've experienced or we've perhaps witnessed some organizations trying to manage their program and do this driver support by themselves, right? Because if they're not getting an answer from the support team, they're going to go to their manager. So it's almost like we have to level set that and understand that the support team should actually be there to support, right? It's not just to deal with these problems. Like, you should be able to trust your partner to answer your driver's questions as a manager, for example, instead of you feeling overwhelmed when this shouldn't be anybody's full-time job, right? That's the purpose of this kind of being with a partnership.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And speaking of partnership, let's talk about management support. Let's talk about company support. We've got the employees who we would be considered the drivers in this case. Then we have the management, right? The people who are approving mileage, right? Who are setting the rates, the administrators of the program itself. So talk to me a little bit about how we support management and administrators at these companies.
Yeah, so the management, or what we call administrators, who actually design, build, and run the programs alongside us, have a dedicated customer success manager, someone that they have the phone number to, their email of, that they can become best friends if they want to. They can just pick up the phone, give them a call if they have one little question. It doesn't need to be a full meeting. It doesn't need to be scheduled. It can be as ad hoc as you want, but it's also something that they provide in terms of annual reviews, rate reviews, mileage band reviews, car policy reviews, and these are proactive things that the customer success manager is doing. They have cadences that they know that these are the times that we need to be reviewing every single aspect of your program and making sure that if they do see something that's out of compliance, that they're bringing it up right away. If they see something that's not working, a lot of drivers are complaining about the insurance and the insurance requirements the company has set, that this is something that's brought up to these administrators so that they can understand, is this something we want to keep in place, or is there an additional training that we need to be doing, or do we need to make a change to our company policy because it's not working for our employees? We built something that didn't take them into consideration, and maybe we need to make a change. So understanding what are the support issues that get called in about, what are the most questions, can we build additional material, custom materials, custom videos, custom training decks that they can provide to their team as they join the FAVR program, so that they already have an initial outset of training that they have. So building those materials alongside them and that are company specific is really important, and one of the aspects that our customer success managers do.
I love that. It sounds like there's a mix of, right out the gate, effective training for the administrators in understanding, both from an administrative perspective, but also from a strategic lens of, hey, we're building your policy this way, and this is most likely what's going to happen, and here are the tools out the gate. From a custom perspective, they're going to help you manage, but then also saying, hey, we set these KPIs in place, and proactively reaching out if those KPIs are threatened, right? Mm-hmm. Like if there's a challenge, if you're seeing a mass amount of drivers fall out of compliance for something, if people are calling in with insurance challenges. I think it's really key to highlight that it sounds like there's a proactive element associated where we're not just waiting along for our annual reviews to say, hey, look, we've got all these problems and we haven't reached your goals. I think that's a really great highlight. In addition, of course, there's elements of vehicle policy assistance, right? So walk me through a little bit about how you help companies establish new policies when making transitions over to car data.
Yeah, so we have standard ones depending on kind of the industry that you're in, that we can compare against. And really understanding what are the goals associated with your policy. Are you trying to make this a very strict policy where you have to put everything in on time, you can't be late for anything? And we can set those policies around that. So we first take a look at what are the goals and how can we design the program and the policy around those goals. What are the goals of the risk team? What are the factors that they need to take into consideration? So making sure that we leverage every stakeholder at the company so that they all have their aspects integrated into the policy that we build for them. So it's really a team build, it's a partnership build, and we go back and forth until we get something that works kind of perfectly for the company, but it's also fair to the employees.
Awesome, yeah. It sounds like cross-functional collaboration is really a key root of these programs, right? Making sure that, say, for example, your drivers are sales representatives. They might have a territory. That the sales managers and their employees feel really confident in the program, but so does finance, right? And so does HR, and everybody's really aligned. And it's nice to hear that there's base, policies in place that we can use and adjust depending on the industry, so what the benchmarks are, where do you want to play? Do you want to be less or more competitive? Do you want to reimburse a little bit richer? But then also there's the ability to make these adjustments depending on, the cross-functional collaboration and the stakeholders involved, which is awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing to really understand the really key ways where we can avoid common FAVR pitfalls. How do we avoid not hitting our ROI? How do we avoid the lack of driver buy-in? And truly it comes from the place of effective training for everybody involved to make sure everybody's so confident in understanding the requirements of their program and how their program benefits them. That's also paired with effective support on all fronts, not only for the company through consultations and proactive program management, but for the drivers in getting the answer they need fast and helping them feel confident moving forward. Thank you so much, Maddie. Again, really appreciate it, and we will avoid these FAVR pitfalls moving forward with car data.
Thanks, Lee.
This has been The Key. Thanks so much for joining us, and drive safe.